So first up, this week we got a press release from KTM announcing some pretty substantial discounts on pretty much all of their new bikes, such as, the 125 to 790 Dukes with discounts ranging from 800 quid up to 1200 quid. Then you've got the 1390 Super Duke R and Evo, both of which get a whopping £2,700 off. And then from the sports touring lineup, you can save £2,100 on an 890 SMT and £3,100 on last year's 1290 Super Duke GT. Then if you take a look at the adventure lineup from the previous year model 390 up to the big capacity stuff like the 1290 Super Adventure R, you've got discounts ranging from 1,300 to 2,600. And on top of that, pretty much all of their dirt bike lineup now comes with between £1,000 and £2,000 off. Perhaps most interestingly though was that they've announced what they call a price realignment, which I think is like KTM speak for we overpriced it in the first place, on the 990 Duke, which was, in my opinion, way too expensive when they brought it out last year at £12,999. It was just such a big step up on the previous generation 890 Duke. And so yeah, this looks pretty good to me actually. The new price of £10,999 seems much more appropriate and also makes it look really quite good versus some of the competition. Soon after, similar news came from Husqvarna, owned by the same group as KTM of course, with the Svartpillen and Vitpillen prices slashed between £900 and £1,500. Nordens, you can get either £1,600 or £1,700 off those, and there are again similar savings to the KTM lineup for their Enduro and motocross bikes. On top of that, they announced the price for their new 2025 Vitpillen 801, and this one's going to be available for £9,999, which I think is probably less than most people were anticipating. So look, on the face of it, it probably looks like a pretty great time to pick up a brand new KTM. But thing is, unless you've been living under a rock for the past year or two, you'll probably know that they've been going through some pretty serious financial difficulties recently, which have kind of forced their hand to introduce all these significant and widespread price reductions. Now, I won't go into the full details right now because it's probably there's enough there for an entire separate video, although maybe let me know in the comments if you want to see a comprehensive timeline of the sort of difficulties that KTM are going through. But in the meantime, what I would say is this. There's a hearing in just over a couple of weeks at the end of February in which they're going to have all of their restructuring and financial plans signed off by their many creditors. And that, assuming it gets signed off, would allow them to move forward as a business and avoid being declared bankrupt effectively, albeit with some fairly significant changes. Thing is though, I checked in on these discounts and I believe, from speaking to their press team that there's no hard date on when they're going to finish, but it seems like they're going to be around for a little while. And so maybe it's still worth holding on for a couple of weeks to make sure you don't end up spending what is still a lot of money on a bike, only for KTM to go under and not be able to get parts or software updates or servicing or repairs. Personally though, I really hope KTM managed to find a way forward. I hope it does get signed off in some form. And then yes, potentially it does look like it could be a good time to grab yourself an absolute bargain if you've been eyeing up one of these KTMs anyway. And plus, hopefully, it'll help KTM to get through this backlog of bikes that they've amassed over the past few years, which is believed to be at, around 250,000.